So that's our problem. That is our problem.
Yes, Sushilji, that is an unfortunate truth when it comes to the Hindu society. We are very much unaware of the pain if that doesn't happen to our own family across the India. But Kashmiri Pandits and Kashmiri Hindus as a whole has suffered a lot. And as DG sir rightfully put it, we have failed you. But yeah, as you rightfully said, the basic necessity and the day-to-day affairs bog us down. But that doesn't apply to a certain community. I'm talking about the jihadis and the community that support them. Why is that?
Because,
What do we need to be aware of that
yes,
as Hindus?
yeah, very good question. We are not aware of the fact that the adversary we face has a worldview in which we occupy the position of worse than animals and insects. In the jihadi worldview, anyone who is a non-believer is called a kafir or an infidel, and he has no right to live. He can live only on the concession of a ruler, a believer ruler, after he has paid for his life through jizya, and could be killed at will if his master of his or his ruler so decides, though so desires. And there is a very elaborate way of describing this world. It is in two parts: Darul Harb and Darul Islam. The peaceful part and the part where war is going on. The peaceful part is where Islam has prevailed, and the war zone is where Islam is in minority. And in this world, no non-Muslim is born to rule. They are born only to be ruled. That's the jihadi interpretation of the world. Two, because this world is created by Allah, only Allah's rule must prevail. Any other rule, by constitution, by law, by code, made by humans or any other power, is infructuous, is bogus, is unacceptable. That is the jihadi worldview. And jihadi worldview is a bogus worldview, a bogus constitution, a bogus ruler, because they are un-Islamic, has no right to exist. And every Muslim has a right to dismantle it and destroy it. Not just a right, it is enjoined upon them as a duty that you must destroy anything which doesn't conform to your worldview, which is, let's say, an Islamic worldview or a jihadi worldview. Now, because we do not know what confronts us, we do not care to study, to realize, to know, we take it lightly. Because our context, our perspective on the world is we all live together in harmony. All paths lead to the same truth. Everybody is good. All religions are equally nice. No, in this goody perspective, you judge your enemy most erroneously and therefore suffer in the process. And we create this confusion in the minds of our children by feeding them lies. We have to make them aware that, listen, this is what happened to us 200 years back. This is what happened to us 100 years back. This is what happened to us 30 years back. 100 years back in Malabar, 30 years back in Kashmir, 200 years back in Coorg, Tipu Sultan, in Mangalore. Now, if we do not have any such awareness and consciousness, as the dictum says, if we don't know our history, we are condemned to repeat it as a tragedy, as a farce. And we have decided not to know our history properly, which is why we suffer. We have to get our children to be ready to deal with what they will face. And unless we get them to be ready, we will be committing a sin by them. If we do not make them aware, and if they are not aware, they are not even half prepared. If we do not make them aware, and I'll keep coming back to it, awareness is our biggest problem. Consciousness, awareness, realization is our biggest problem. In Kashmiri Hindu homes, we did not tell our children what happened to us in Kashmir, because we were scared that they will face, how will they live with this trauma, how will they grow up with this pain, this will distort their childhood, this will take happiness out of their lives. So we keep them ignorant, uninformed, and unprepared. Nature abhors vacuum. If you do not give them the right information, propagandists fill them up with lies. So some of these children grew up thinking that, oh, there must have been some calamity. Like floods happen, earthquakes happen. Something must have happened. I don't know what happened, but we all left Kashmir and we must, all go back and live in harmony, because milk and honey flowed before we left and it will flow again if we go back. We are responsible for this stupidity because we don't tell our children what happened to us. If we do not utilize this opportunity, the 100th anniversary of Mopala massacres, to tell the Hindus of what our forefathers suffered, how will we ever prepare them for what might happen again? So the biggest adversary is not the enemy at the door waiting to strike. The biggest adversary is the lack of our own consciousness, awareness, which is called in Hindi, I would say, the shatrubodh ka abhav, sankat bodh ka abhav, the lack of acknowledgement or realization about a, a calamity which is about to happen, an enemy who is about to strike. Ignorance of this is our biggest problem. Not our ability to defend ourselves. No, that comes later. We will build that ability, we'll build that capacity. But what comes in the way is realization that we need that capacity. We need to be prepared. We need to defend ourselves. We've been over the generations being at the receiving end of this calamity, and we cannot make it a repeated cycles of every few generations getting chopped up and getting evicted. And it is
Thank you,
up to
Pandit.
us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pandit Ji. One last question from the moderator's side, and then with your permission, we'll take a few audience questions. That is, I'm quoting you here, so forgive me if I get my Punjabi wrong.
No, no, please.
That in ancient times, that is from the medieval times, not ancient times, the medieval times, from the Afghan rules to the genocide exodus that happened in 1990, Kashmiri Hindus were given three options: relive, salive, and ya galive.
Yes.
If I'm getting my Punjabi
No, no,
wrong,
this is
uh,
Kashmiri. This is
I'm just
Kashmiri.
quoting you. I'm just quoting you.
This is
So if
Kashmiri.
I get my Punjabi, so I think it would be fitting if you could explain that concept to our audience so that we are aware, at least some of them are aware of the history.
Yes. So these are three words from Kashmiri language, not Punjabi. Relive, Giliv, Tsiliv. Relive means to assimilate, which means you convert. Giliv means to rot, which means you die. And Tsiliv means to run away, which means you flee for your life. You get into exile. So, but these were the three options, and the third option, Tsiliv, was not a sincere option because there was no possibility of running too far away. They would kill you. So, very few could run away, and they would perhaps just simply disappear in the dead of the night. In one of the Raj Taranginis, Shrivar says that on the hill slopes and in the forests, Kashmiri Pandits are roaming around hungry and parched like hunted animals with their tongues hanging out. He writes this description in Raj Tarangini. So, relive, giliv, ziliv were the three options: convert, die, or run away.
Panditji, as you rightfully said it, the option to leave was not sincere at all. And I am equating that with the Mopla riots and the situations that are happening still in Kashmir, because they were not given the option to leave actually, convert or die. Those were the only options. I agree with you completely. And apologize to mixing up the languages. It was Kashmiri.
Mhm.
So I'm just quoting from my, I was just quoting you from my memory, but
Yeah,
that is a painful memory. I know that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so with your permission, Panditji, we will take, can we take a few
Please
audience
go ahead.
questions now?
Please go ahead.
All right. All right. So, as to audience, we are turning the hand rising on. Please come up with your questions and wait for your turn until the moderators call you. Those who have, those who have joined the speakers panel, kindly mute your mic and wait for your turn, please, until the moderators call your name, please. So,
Hello.
hold on, Janendra Brahman. There was an invitee first. Uh, can you mute your mic, please, until your name is called, Mr. Barman? Mr. Barman. All right. Kumar Chalabanji, I hope you are online. You can go ahead first.
Yeah, Sushil, good evening. I'm Kumar Chellapan from Pioneer newspaper. So after a long time, I'm coming across you. Since we met in Chennai, a lot of things have happened.
Sir.
Now that you have mentioned about Raj Sarinkani, I do have one or two questions. It was really shocking to know that Raj Tarankani has not been translated into Malayalam. And there's a concerted effort by a section of the people that this book should never be translated into Malayalam. This will happen. What has happened to the Breaking India by Raju Malhotra is about to happen to Raj Sarangi also. So I request you to make some kind of arrangement for the translation of this book in Malayalam.
All right.
And another thing is that most of the people in Kerala, they don't know what happened in 1989 when Vishwanath Pratap Singh became the chief prime minister of the country and appointed Mufti Muhammad Sayyid as the home minister, as the union home minister. Uh, well, his daughter is staying in Chennai. Uh, you should, I don't know, if the first part of this speech, I missed it. I don't know whether you mentioned about it. No, you should tell the people what happened, how Mufti Muhammad Sayyid was made the minister, home minister, and about the drama staged afterwards in releasing some of the terrorists. These are two of the events. And one more thing, you are talking about the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits. The same thing is happening to Kerala Hindus. You know, you spoke about the Mopla rebellion. You see, Sushil, the thing is that the founder of the Malayalam language, Tunjat Ramanujan Ezhutachan, he does not have. We don't have a statue of him in his birthplace.
Mm-hmm.
The Muslims consider it as un-Islamic to install a statue of Ezhutachan in their domain. And as you know, Malappuram is their domain, so many Pakistan, so they will never allow a lot of things, I have been writing about it a number of times in my newspaper, but who is there to bother about that? No, we don't have an edition here, or we don't have any readers here. But
This statue of.
Tunjat Ezhutachan,
Okay.
Tunjatha Ramanujan Ezhutachan, who is the father of Malayalam language.
Okay.
And probably he may be the only person in the world, a father of a particular language,
Mm-hmm.
who does not have a statue of his own installed in the place where he was born.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the situation, Sushil. Thank you very much.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep. Thanks for reminding me about that period. Yes, I did not mention it to them because we had only so much time, and there are so many other things to be said, and some of these things I didn't write things down. I was just speaking from uh, my memory as the flow happened, and few things got left out. And of course, one of these things was that Vishwanath Pratap Singh was the prime minister indeed when our exodus happened. He took office on 2nd of December 1989. We symbolically attribute 19th of January 1990 as the date of our mass exodus. So technically, it was after, say, 48 days after he took over as Prime Minister of India. On 2nd, he took over and appointed Mufti Muhammad Saeed as his home minister, and on 8th of the same month, December, which means within less than a week, his daughter was abducted. Daughter's name was Rubaya Saeed, Mehbooba's younger sister. And the chief minister of Kashmir at that time was Farooq Abdullah. Home minister was Mufti Muhammad Saeed, again a Kashmiri. Between these two, they decided to release 6 dreaded terrorists from the jail in return for safe release of Rubaya, which happened a week later on 14th of December. And that was like a steroid shot in an ongoing jihad where they tasted victory. They managed to bend not just the chief minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Farooq Abdullah, but also the home minister of India, Mufti Muhammad Saeed. And that steroid shot led to a frenzy on the streets, celebrations, fireworks, sloganeering, and violence. It was followed by mosque loudspeakers being used to threaten us with very, very alarming slogans. And then notices started getting pasted on our doors, asking us to leave. On the mosque notice boards, hit lists were pasted of the neighborhood Hindus to be killed. And every night, massive processions would come down to the streets and surround our homes and beat our doors and pelt stones at our windows and use the loudspeakers of the mosques to hurl abusive slogans at us, one of which was, we want to make here Pakistan. We want to turn Kashmir into Pakistan without the Hindu males, but with their women. In Kashmiri, the slogan rhymes like Aisgach Pannui Pakistan, Batav Rusti Batnavsan. Now, this is what a small minority, a single digit minority, surrounded by an aggressive, violent, bloodthirsty majority, did to us. And people ask me, but then there was army. What happened to army in Kashmir? The then Northern Army commander was General Muhammad Zaki, Lieutenant General Muhammad Zaki. You know his background? He was inducted into the Indian Army from Nizam Hyderabad's army. Which fought against Indian Army. So under his command, the troops stayed in the barracks. And in any case, the state government did not ask for those troops for safety. The central government did not ask the state to provide those troops for the safety. And the army, Northern Army commander, Lieutenant General Muhammad, no, look at our misfortune. The chief minister is Farooq Abdullah. The home minister is Mufti Muhammad Saeed. The Northern Area Army commander is General Ahmad Zaki of Nizam's army's background. The police is completely subverted. We are left completely defenseless. Anyways, thank you for reminding me and asking me to mention what happened then.
Thank you, Pandit ji. Thank you, Kumar Chalaban ji. Jananendra,
Thank you.
your
Thank,
question, please. Your question.
thank you, Manojji. What Sushilji has explained actually, it's horror actually. You know, me even today mutilated marginals.
Janendra
And
ji, I think you're breaking off. Is there a problem with your headset or with your connection? If you're using a headset, can you remove it and repeat the question, please?
oh, actually, I'm speaking from a remote village of Assam, so that's why there may be some network issue.
Now you're audible clearly. Go ahead.
Acha,
Go ahead.
acha. What Sushilji has explained actually, it's horror. Kashmiri Pandits, they have, it's like it's Holocaust, and they have been mutilated. Even today, they are mutilated marginals. Uh, this current dispensation actually it was expected that some major steps would be taken to ensure security of of the people, Kashmiri Pandits. So we would like to expect from this government to take necessary steps for Kunan Kashmir, what Shilji has rightly said. And I'm from Assam. If you give me 30 seconds time to explain our experience, Assam is also going in Kashmir's direction. Demographic change taking place in some 15 districts of Assam. We have lost the Hindu people. They are becoming minority. Bangladesh infiltration taking place, and in those areas where we have become minority, our girls are kidnapped and raped. 63 lakhs vigas of lands belongs to our temple, belongs to the Satra institution established by Mahapurush Srimanta Shankardeva. So lands occupied. So very alarming situation. It's really alarming. That is what I want to share. So many things to share, but then I'd like to listen more actually, because to know more about different aspects and how to address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Janendra ji. Pandit ji, your response to that?
Yes, I'm aware of what Assam is going through, and I had briefly mentioned about it in response to one of your questions. He didn't name the districts. I'll name those districts. There is Barpeta, there is
Yes.
Goalpara, there is Nagaon, there is Dhubri, there is
Yes,
Kokrajhar.
Sushil.
You know,
Yes.
these districts are all but gone. 80%,
Yes.
90% of population
Exactly.
has been completely subverted. Can you believe this? And
Terrible.
and whoever is left there is living in terror,
Yes.
everyday terror. Imagine families with children, with women, with daughters.
And
Those,
Sushil,
I don't know how many of those who are listening to this conversation today have the experience of living like a small, defenseless, unprotected, unarmed minority surrounded by an aggressive, violent majority. I don't
yes,
know.
yes.
And if you haven't experienced it, you can never, ever understand what we are talking about.
Exactly. Yes.
That's all I can say.
Okay. Thank you,
As
Pandit Ji.
when what
Yes,
pains
go.
us, what pains us more is that when we raise our voice, in university, I've been raising my voice.
Janendra Ji, you're breaking off again.
Actually, what pains us more, actually, when we raise this voice, when we raise our voice, we are labeled communal. In the dominant intellectual discourse, we are labeled
Correct.
communal. I'm a professor in a university. I've been raising this voice, writing in local newspapers and as visiting as panelist in talk shows. I've been raising this voice. The moment I raise the voice in the intellectual discourse, we are labeled communal. How painful it is. It's very, very painful, agonizing. Thank you.
Janedraji, don't bother. Those who call you communal are the biggest hypocrites. You
Yes.
have to, I must tell you something. It might look like preaching.
Yes,
Today,
yes.
you or I have the responsibility of speaking the truth. Even if we are in the minority of one, if the victims stop speaking the truth, then it means the victim has accepted what is happening to him as his fate, and therefore becomes guilty of allowing this sin to perpetrate. You will be committing a huge sin against the victims and survivors of this genocide if you don't speak the truth, irrespective of what happens. If we cannot do anything else, if we cannot fight back, if we cannot pick weapons, if we cannot kill, at least, at the very least, we must speak the truth.
Yes, exactly.
At the very least, this act of defiance liberates us, if nothing else.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pandit Ji. Thank you, Janendra Ji. Janendra Ji, your mic is echoing badly. Can you just kindly mute the mic so that it won't echo? Right. Thank you, Janendra Ji. Captain, are you online? Captain Africa,
Yes, thank
just
you.
go ahead.
Thank you, Manoj ji. Am
Yeah.
I audible?
Yes, you are. You are.
सुशील जी जय हिंद.
जय हिंद.
थैंक यू सो मच. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर द टाइम. और जिस तरह से आपने एज यूजुअल आप क्रिस्प थे, क्लियर थे. जो पूछना चाहता था, यू हैव ऑलरेडी एड्रेस्ड इट कि द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन फर्स्ट हैज टू एक्नॉलेज कि हुआ क्या था. हाँ, कश्मीरी पंडितों के साथ, कश्मीरी हिंदुओं के साथ ABC हुआ था. And it should be on record. That is the first step towards it. Now, जब तक वो नहीं होता, बाकी के steps जैसे आपने कहा नहीं होंगे. So my point here is, sir, we have been listening to you. We have been listening to the horrific stories, not stories. Pardon me for the wrong word. The narrations, what actually happened there. Your neighbors, who were your neighbors, whom you ate food with, whom you celebrated festivals together. Now, next day, they say, यहाँ क्या चलेगा, निज़ाम मुस्तफ़ा, कश्मीर में रहना होगा, अल्लाह अकबर कहना होगा. Now, these sort of sloganeering, आप इससे जो मानसिकता वहाँ पे हुई थी, and the exodus which happened. Now, this is being downplayed or whitewashed by the high English speaking liberal pseudo secular brigade sitting in Delhi.
Mhm.
And sir, जब तक ये acknowledgement establishment की तरफ से नहीं होता,
Mhm.
how would what would be the steps so that the young and the current school going children and the young citizens of India, ये अभी हिस्ट्री बुक्स से तो नहीं पढ़ सकते ये सब, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Now, what are the steps which we can do so that this horrific stories does not go whitewashed as Mopla riots which happened 100 years ago, which was whitewashed कि ये freedom struggle था, ये खिलाफत movement का एक भाग था, ऐसे. Thank you so much.
No, as I was speaking with Janendra ji a short while ago, Captain Saab, we have to, even if we are in the minority of one, even if we are outnumbered by a very vehement, vociferous, noisy group, for whatever reason, our resolute defiance and our adherence to the truth not as we infer it, truth of our lived experience, everyday lived experience, which is undeniable. It is not about some text that we read, it is not about some opinion that we express, it is not about some conclusions we draw. No, the truth of our everyday existence, the experienced truth, needs to be said and told again and again. And I faced it. People like me faced it when we started 10 years ago, because for first 20 years, after suffering all this, we were aghast that those who killed us, who massacred us, who committed a genocide, were roaming around as victims. And India's civil society was offering them public platforms. And they were going around as heroes trying to hector us in terms of what should be done in Kashmir. Can you believe this? And we saw all this happen. We saw prime ministers inviting these mass murderers like Yasin Malik home and click pictures with him. We saw India Today conclaves inviting Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani to enlighten us on what is the problem in Kashmir. They were all given social acceptance and accolades as heroes, as freedom fighters of Kashmir, as representatives of Kashmir, as icons of Kashmir, popular icons of Kashmir. After all that they had committed and gotten away scot free. So, in this environment, when we first decided to defy, I went to such a conclave with handmade posters and handbills, stood up, screamed, and threw them. And police was called, and we were picked up and taken to the police station and detained. We were dubbed as rebel rousers till they started realizing that we were speaking in English, we were well dressed, we looked like educated people. And then they started paying attention, and within 2 years, all invitations dried up. They knew that Kashmiri Hindus will not take it lying down in cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chandigarh, Lucknow, wherever they organize these public functions, that we will go and we will tell the people and shame and embarrass the organizers for this. So gradually, we started getting heard At that time, social media was not so popular or so strong, and mainstream media was still controlled by left liberal cabal. Even to get a letter to the editor published in a truncated form, a fraction of what you had written, was a big achievement. And that is what we would do, just bang our head against the wall for all the articles and stories that were published about Kashmir, which were not factual, which were propaganda. But we said, no matter what, we will keep defying. So, 12 years later, when we look back, I must tell you, I look back with one satisfaction, that what we have achieved is that we have rolled back the 20 years of unidimensional narrative on Kashmir, which was controlled by jihad. We have punctured it completely, and today we give back as good as we get, and we are winning in the war of narratives. We have managed to at least make a significant part of Indian population aware of what happened in Kashmir. There is a long way to go. I realize that our government, our political class, our academia, our media, our civil society is still in the grip of this pseudo liberal left socialist domain. But the social media backlash is so strong that some of them have now joined social media to get audiences. Things like Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, blogs, all of it. And after the pandemic, the Zoom network, webinars, they are reaching out far and wide. And we are able to connect with people, make them aware, and we are not giving up without a fight. We are all believers in Gita. Bhagavad Gita tells us our part is to make the effort. The result is not in our hands. There is one up there sitting who decide what the result may be, whatever he does.
Very well said,
Yeah,
Sushil ji.
we will not give up.
We will not give up. And then I want to assure you, I belong from Kerala, and I want to assure you, you are not alone in this fight. We
Thank
know
you.
what, and हम अपने बच्चों को ये बताएंगे कि 30 साल में क्या हुआ था वहाँ पे, generations वहाँ पे पैदा हुए, वहाँ पे उनकी शादियां हुई, वहाँ पे उनके बच्चे हुए. Sir, this is what we tell our children, to look out for the telltale signs, what is happening around you, which Kerala is already facing, and then act accordingly. Sir, राम की गिलहरी की तरह हम भी आपके साथ हैं, हमसे जो होगा. जय.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Captain G. That was a wonderful conclusion from your part, and I agree with you. Sushil Pandit Ji, we are with you.
Thank you so much.
Sunil Ji, you online?
Yes, good evening, Sushil ji,
Good evening,
and
sir.
to the rest of Pathrika. I have to say that listening to your initial discussion, both by yourself and also with questioners, including the moderators with Manoj and other people, uh, it was very enlightening because a lot of facets of things that I didn't know. At least the contextual parts came out, and for that I'm very thankful. But I have to confess, when I hear the whole thing, uh, it is very depressing in a sense that maybe we have been too premature in celebrating this repeal of 370, that it appears that our government takes one step forward and two step back, and therefore very frustrating. However, I would say that your experiences, and while many people say that they understand you and sympathize with you, uh, they could never fully understand, because as the old saying goes, unless I walk a mile in your shoes, I will never truly understand what you people went through. uh, However, in Kerala, we may be faced in the future, and I say may because it's the future is by no means certain. We may be faced with a future that mirrors your own, and therefore your experiences would, if we choose to learn from that, would be a lesson that we should learn from, because if we don't learn from that, then we will, unfortunately, as these once again the old adage goes, we may be forced to relive history if we don't learn from it. So that is one of those things out there that Keralites really have to look forward to, because demography is destiny, and the slow change of demography will have a result on all those issues. Now, one of the, I guess, questions I had, and forgive my ignorance of your topography. Well, actually, before I go there, I have one other question. I'll wrap it into two questions, because I know I don't want to take up time and cut into other people's questions. But one is topography, and the other is the uh, the uh, the issue of genocide that must be addressed and reported and remembered and propagated throughout the world. If you think of the statistics, the Armenian massacre, where the Turks massacred the Armenians, as I understand it, there was about 500,000 or a bit more than that that were massacred, and that became a huge issue. And if I remember, either the U.S. Congress or in the United States, United Nations, it was finally acknowledged that such a massacre did happen over the objections of the Turks. Um, Here we have Kashmiri Pandits. I believe they were close to 800,000 or a million. My stats may be wrong, but it is no less a horrific massacre. And I'm glad to hear your observation that you have changed the narrative and more people are knowing about it. I hope we can do more and push it out front, so all these fake people and narratives can be demolished once and for all. But the other question I have is, since a lot of the current day scenarios come from across the border, do you think, given the demography that Jammu and Leh and the other areas have a majority of non Muslim populations, do you think that geographically, if we were to take over the POK, would that solve some of these pinpricks and constant issues, or would we be just taking over some other issues that we are not aware of, some other secondary issues. Uh, I know of all the on the ground issues that the government is not doing, and believe me, I'm as frustrated as you are with the way our government does not give justice to the Kashmiri Pandits and the real people of the land. And as you rightfully put it, the state is culpable in converting its own people. So, are there organizations in Jammu and other areas that help you in that immediate area? Can you shed some light on it? I may have perhaps rambled on too much. Thank you.
No, thank you for your remarks, Sunilji, and also the kind words you spoke. I'll answer these two questions the best I can. The first question first, POK. Pakistan occupied Kashmir, as far as we are concerned, is about almost 40% of the Jammu and Kashmir that acceded to us on 26th of October 1947. And this includes the areas west of Punch and Rajouri and Baramulla, Uri, which are called Mirpur, Muzaffarabad. And it also extends north and west of Ladakh, which means Skardu, Gilgit, Baltistan. Now, what Pakistan has done is it has divided them into two. It has separated Gilgit Baltistan into what they used to call it northern areas, and now they call it Gilgit Baltistan as a fifth province of Pakistan, and separated Muzaffarabad, Mirpur, Kotli area as Azad Kashmir. You know, a rump of uh, an apology of a sovereign state, which is the protectorate of Pakistan. It has its own president and prime minister, though a joint secretary in the Interior Ministry of Pakistan deals with them and makes them wait for hours when they come to meet. And their elections are rigged, and they can only fight elections after they give it in writing that Azad Kashmir owes allegiance to Pakistan, and they would like this to merge with Pakistan when the dispute resolution takes place. Now, that part of geography has been completely cleansed of Hindus and Sikhs who used to live there, and Buddhists. So it is 100% Muslim demography in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Plus, the Pakistan army is sitting there, is heavily fortified. Now, I am someone who would like to keep that claim alive and look at an opportune time in history or future to see what to do about it. The present issue is the Kashmir that we hold. Are we able to manage it to our satisfaction? Are we holding it as our own territory where free will of our constitution, our parliament, our organs of the state can prevail? If not, then looking over the line of control and thinking about that territory is absolutely mindless. And those who are talking about it in politics and in political discourse and trying to nudge the public opinion and euphoria and jingoism in that direction in order to take the attention away from what they are not able to do in the Kashmir that we currently hold is a red herring. It is feeding some kind of delirium to a patriotic population, taking their focus away from what needs to be done in Kashmir now to what we should do to POK in some distant future, some pie in the sky when I die kind of scenario. So we better pay attention to where we are hemorrhaging day in and day out today. Consolidate it, have a policy about it. Till date, Government of India has not published a single paper, one page or not even a paragraph of what could be considered a policy or a proposal or an understanding of what they face in Kashmir. It is as if on a whim they decide one day to do one thing, another day do another thing, and you rightly said it's one step forward, two steps back, and three steps sideways. It is pathetic how we are conducting ourselves in the Jammu and Kashmir that belongs to us today, is within our control, and is defended ably by our armed forces. Now, the second thing that you talked about was, are we getting any support in the Jammu region, which currently has the favorable demography in terms of majority Hindu population? I must tell you that jihad, having cleansed non-Muslims from the valley, is now expanding southwards into Jammu. They have already taken up 40% of the demography in Jammu. 40% Muslim population in the Jammu division of Jammu and Kashmir. And this is, in fact, abutting the Kashmir Valley. In Kashmir, they call it Greater Kashmir. And they are expanding southwards. And acts, the laws like Roshni Act enable them to grab land and rehabilitate more outsiders in order to change the balance, demographic balance. Would you imagine more than 10,000 Rohingyas were brought all the way from Burma and established in camps in Jammu when 370 was intact, when Government of India or President of India could not buy an inch of land in Kashmir. These guys were given water connections, electricity connections, land, shops on the highway to run a Burma bazaar. This is how compromised our state is from within. Our political class, our bureaucracy, our security apparatus is complicit in it. And for the past 7 years, we have a government which came to office citing this as a danger to India. And under their regime, they have opened bank accounts and Aadhaar cards, and they are now merrily going around well integrated in Jammu. So I wonder, how long will we sustain a small demographic edge that we have in Jammu in the face of this incessant, relentless demographic assault on Jammu? As you very rightly said, demography is destiny. I agree with you 100%. But I would urge you to show me one document, one policy, one statement from the state of India or the political class of India, or even among our security experts and think tanks who acknowledge this and factor it in our security preparedness. I haven't heard one security expert today say that demography is an extremely sensitive leverage that we must preserve. There is no policy on preserving demography anywhere in the country because we are paralyzed by our own delusion about secularism. And if we start talking about demography, what will happen to the secular state? So we have lost sight of security of our future generations, why future, even present generation, in order to sustain a pretense. And while you know, I know, any man with common sense would know that demography is the critical factor in retaining integrity of this country. Because our demography was compromised, India was partitioned. Because our demography was compromised, Valley cleansed its Hindus. Because the demography is compromised, Hindus are covering and fearing in terror in districts of Assam and districts of Kerala and districts of Tamil Nadu, in districts of Telangana, in several districts of UP, in Bihar, in the heartland. But our system, our state, the organs of the state, for them, demography is not to be uttered, is not to be even thought of. So you will never ever see any policy, any decision, any act, any provision to protect this most sensitive and and powerful prerequisite of preserving our nationhood. I hope
Thank
I've
you,
answered your question.
thank you, Panditji. Yes, I think so. And uh, we have a couple of three more in the speaker panel with questions. Let's make that quick, guys. It's already running late. Amal Singh, your
Yeah,
question.
okay. Yeah, okay. So, Sushil, I wasn't listening to, like, I only came late to the group, so I was only listening to the last words of what you were saying. Like, earlier, I only came about like 10 or 15 minutes back. But I've been like debating these issues with people from like all places, like even in groups who am moderating, like where the moderators were Pakistanis and stuff like that. So, something I want to ask you regarding like how the people of Kashmir are, because like I've been hearing things which are like quite concerning. Because like as an example, I'll be saying I've heard on multiple accounts a reporter who is from JNK saying that the like in that area that the people, the common people there are sending their daughters across the border, thinking that that will benefit their religion and stuff like that. But in the end, it will only like result in abuses and stuff like that by the terrorists themselves. Like the terrorists themselves abuse the Muslim daughters of the people there. But since it is what do you say, people from the same community, most of them don't raise concerns or don't raise cases against them. And I have heard these things from multiple like reporters and journalists from there. And also one other thing is Vivek Agnihotri. I think he was the one who made a movie recently based on the like Pandit Exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits. So I've heard him say that when he went to shoot his movie there, that several people were telling him, like several children were asking him, like, where do you do namaz? Like, where do you pray for namaz? And he said, no, we don't do namaz here. And the child replied to him, like, no, but everyone should be doing namaz, right? So that just shows the concept of secularism, which is advently like not there with the people there. And another example is the actress from Secret Superstar, like who had to face several criticisms over her like un-Islamic, so to speak, like when other people say it's un-Islamic and stuff like that, her roles, and criticizing her for that and trolling her for that. So I just want to say, like, how is secularism, the concept of secularism, how is that concept uh, being taught in Kashmir, or how is that among the common people of Kashmir? I just want to know that, because I think I have a bad experience from what I've learned online. So, is there even a concept of secularism in Kashmir among the Kashmiri people? I'm not talking about Jammu, but among the Kashmiri people, among the Muslims of Kashmir.
Uh, Secularism is a trait that they expect of others, non-Muslims. So this is an obligation that the non-Muslims have to meet while dealing with Muslims as rulers, as bureaucrats, as academicians, politicians, as service providers. But when it comes to responding in kind, they insist on primacy of Islam, and they are very candid about it. If you were to indulge in a debate called secularism and secular issues, they would say, yes, you are followers of Gandhi, you run a secular democracy, and secular democracy gives us Muslims rights. So your secularism gives us rights, and please ensure those rights come to us. We, in turn, do we owe any obligation to such a constitution or such a system of secularism? Sorry, no such thing. Now, I'll tell you what kind of secularism prevailed in Kashmir. Constitution minorities as vulnerable groups to be saved from the tyranny of majority, and they were therefore given certain privileges which are not available to majority, right? And in that process, we even created a minorities commission and later created a minorities ministry. We went overboard. We created several institutions specifically for minorities because we are secular. And secularism demands that we hold minorities on a pedestal and keep them privileged. All right. Now, Jammu Kashmir was a Muslim majority state. We asked them, in Jammu and Kashmir, we are the minority, you are the majority. But they would say, no, 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 no. Indian constitution has, though there is no definition of minority in Indian constitution, it doesn't say Muslims are a minority. It defines minority as a smaller group of people. It could be linguistic minority also. It just says minorities without getting into the faith part. Now they say, well, that is the concept in Indian constitution, and Indian constitution identifies minorities. We are part of India, so don't treat us separately as Jammu and Kashmir. So minorities everywhere would be minorities. And hence, 97% population of Kashmir Valley was considered a minority. And we, 3-4% Hindus, were considered a majority. So all the privileges were cornered by the majority in Kashmir, masquerading as minority. We said, all right. We also said, fine, we will discuss all this. Why don't you create a minorities commission which will define who the minorities are? So you will find that while there is a minority commission in India at the center, and then there are state minorities commission, Supreme Court asked the state of Jammu and Kashmir to create a minority commission through its judgment and an order. The state refused. Till date, there is no minority commission in Jammu and Kashmir, even after it has become the union territory. And when I said that, okay, you talk about Constitution of India defining minorities, but you don't believe in Constitution of India, you have a separate constitution for Jammu and Kashmir. And you know what? That separate constitution for Jammu and Kashmir did not utter the word minority even once. Forget privileges, it didn't even acknowledge something called minority or majority. So this was the perversion in practice. If there were any minority related benefits and privileges, they would corner them. If there was any obligation towards any minorities, they would skip that. And the smallest and the most peaceful and unarmed, defenseless minority was hounded out. In last one line, I asked them, name one Muslim who was ever killed by a Kashmiri Pandit in last 100 years. One, even as an exception, there is none. And all Kashmiri Hindus killed in thousands were by Kashmiri Muslims. I tell them, please show me one Kashmiri Pandit in a jail anywhere in the world. We are 100% educated with 0%. And this is what you did to us. There are no answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Panditji. Thank you, Amal. Rajiv, your question, please. Rajiv, your mic is muted. Now it is unmuted, but you're not audible. I think there is some problem with your connection. I'm moving on to the next speaker due to the lack of time. Rajiv,
Hello,
is there a
hello.
problem? Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. You're audible now. Go ahead.
Sorry, the software is hanging. So, thank you, Pathrika. And hello, Manoj bhai. Namaste, Sushil sir.
Namaste, Rajiv.
Sir, yeah, thank you. Sir, I am a Sanatana Dharmi and I was following my community's problems all across India. So, I found three major critical problems that defies. One is lack of awareness about our Shatrubodh or our culture or our present situation, whatever you can call. Another is lack of unity among our community, and that and the last one and the most important one is demography. So you addressed mainly all of these points, but I pardon me for asking this directly to you, sir. Was there any lack of unity among the Kashmiri Pandits at that time, so that these people were able to drive away or do immense crime on our community and drive away lakhs of people from a single act? I was astonished to see not a single fight. We have to have both Shatrubodh and Shastrabodh also. So was there a lack of unity or lack of fight that caused this exodus? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for this question, Rajiv ji. And I was wondering why nobody has asked this question so far, because I generally get asked this question. People very often ask, why didn't you fight back? You should have resisted. And I can understand where they're coming from, because they are ignorant about the conditions at that time. As I mentioned, Hindus in Kashmir were spread thin. We were in every district, in every tehsil, in every panchayat, in every village, in every mohalla. We did not live in ghettos. You know, traditionally, when a society gets converted, 100% society gets converted. Suppose there is a neighborhood, and in that conversion, a neighborhood of 100, 10 convert, 15 convert, 20 convert, and as the conversion goes on, then what is left is 4 or 5. Yeah. So we did not come from outside and for the sake of security started living in a cluster. No, we lived for centuries, and people were forced, people were lured, people were threatened, people were killed, exiled, and the conversions happened. And then people came from outside and started settling around, and our number dwindled. As a result, we were spread thin across everywhere. There were villages where we were in a minority of just one family, just one or two whole households. Okay, so we were spread thin. It's not lack of unity, it was the lack of numbers, viable numbers to start with. If there is a crowd of 1000 and you are only 5 or 10, and you have women and children with you, what do? Committing an act of resistance or bravado is not only committing suicide for yourself, but leaving your vulnerable daughter, sister, children, old parents into a nightmare. That's number one. Number two, we as a community were never armed, and we were faced with Kalashnikovs, grenades, pistols, firearms, daggers. In an average Hindu home, the best you had was a kitchen knife or a small stick. We never ever thought that in independent India we will be subjected like this. Frankly, we were in this delusion that so long as the secretariat has a tricolor flying, so long as the cantonment of Badami Bagh has the Indian army sitting, so long as we have an elected prime minister who is responsible for our security, nobody will dare touch us, because this 900 million strong country will erupt in anger and there will be consequences. We lived in this delusion. So we were caught completely unaware and unprepared. And the entire system turned its back on us. At that time, we had to make a choice. And the choice was to mindlessly jump into a conflict, get butchered because the numbers and the comparison of the equipment and the arms and the ammunition and other preparedness being what it was, meet a sure death, and then leave your women folk, your children, your old parents to the mercy of these barbarians. The other option was quietly save lives, leave everything, all your possessions, everything, save lives, and come back and fight another day. If you think we have wrongly chosen the second option, then I can't say much. But that was the decision most took.
Thank you, Pandit ji. Thank you, Rajiv. Sunil sir, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
Sushil,
Go ahead.
Sushil, it's a pleasure and an honor to be speaking to you.
You're welcome,
Um,
Sunil.
I've met, you know, several Kashmiri Hindus who have worked with me, and they've been stellar staff and people, in their honesty and their integrity. Like most other people too, so it's not to differentiate, but I just, I enjoyed working with them. But I should say, with a sense of remorse, that none of them, despite the friendship and despite asking, none of them, they always shied away from talking about what happened, in their lives as they grew up, the tragedies that they faced. And I think that's not just common. I think it's common to the Hindu, psyche. I think, a small Babri Masjid will be spoken forever. It'll be a tale every child is taught in every madrasa, right? but the fact that you have everything else that's done against the Hindu community becomes a freedom struggle, for Kashmir and for Kerala and all that. So, but my question is, I have a few questions. I wish I really, in my mind, the question I really wanted to ask, which I think probably there is maybe little time to answer, but I really wanted to know your own from as you grew up into this activist and in the struggles, right? But maybe for another day, because it's probably too short on time here. But let me ask you a different question, more to the future. What role do you think delimitation will play in securing or or disrupting the Kashmir Jammu state? Let me stop there.
Thank you for your observation as well as your question. As far as your observation is concerned, you're right. Uh, most Kashmiri homes, and I think I had mentioned this somewhere earlier also, avoid talking about it, much less telling their young children about it, because they think that inflicting trauma on them at a tender, impressionable age is going to warp their growing up with, avoidable pain and avoidable scars, and might kind of impact their thinking in a very negative manner for life. So positive as we try and be, we try and shield them, uh, our children. We try and not revisit our shared miserable experience, because we don't want to remain sad and we don't want to wallow in self-pity. Extension of that, Sunil, is that most of us are also ashamed of what happened to us. You can't easily come to terms with it, so you don't readily accept it. It's like a rape victim. You think there's something wrong with us, that it was our misfortune, that we got punished for some sin, that why us? It's so it's so unbelievable that when we were exiled into tents in Jammu, in shanties, in tenements, and somebody said these are refugees from Kashmir, people said, "Oh, no, 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 no." Somebody else used another better term. We call us migrants. Refugees is a very, very disparaging thing. We are not refugees. We are well to do people. We have education. We will do well in life. Try and connect with the psychology of this community, which has been bearing it for 600 years in cycles. They're tired of being victims, tired of being humiliated, tired of going through the torment and hiding it, lying about it. So I think there should be a study into what kind of trauma people carry, those who survive it, those who didn't just died, but those who survived it with the memory of the dead and memory of the life they had to leave behind. They go mad. I'll give you an example. There is a minister in this government, in the PMO. His name is Dr. Jitendra Singh. He's, in fact, endocrinologist. He had a thriving practice in Jammu. before he became an MP and a minister in this government. He wrote a book called Stress Diabetes Among Kashmiri Hindus. It spread like an epidemic among the refugees. And the lack of medicine, diet, and proper care, they died. They died in large numbers, premature. Many went mad, insane. But they will never be part of any statistics because it wasn't a bullet or a grenade that took their life. So those who grin and bear and walk around as if nothing happened is a default subliminal response of covering up that we are normal people, we are all right. There's nothing wrong with us. And being in denial, I mean, it's, if you take it as a humiliation, because there's no vindication. Can you believe this entire country just ignored it? It still hasn't been reversed. There's no justice. So you think that there was something wrong with us, probably because nobody's bothered, nothing's happening about it, nothing seems to will ever happen. So maybe we should just shut up about it and go on with our lives. It's not an issue. That is the travesty. A genocide denied is a genocide multiplied.
Panditji, thank you. Sunilji, thank you. Panditji,
Yes.
yeah, I believe I'm audible, and you have concluded that answer, right?
Yep.
All right. So thank you, Sunil sir. And with that, that brings us to the conclusion of our audience session. And to the conclusion of this session, it's been 3 hours since we started this session. So, and I know it was highly emotional for you, Panditji, but as you rightfully said, this is a battle that where we cannot give up. So, before we go, before we come to you for the conclusion, I would go to, with your permission, I would go to TG Mohan Das sir for a few words as his conclusive statement. TG sir?
Yes, I'll tell you one thing. Why we are ignoring each other, or we ask why you didn't retaliate at that point of time. It was never Hindu nature to do that. Why did Kerala Hindus not retaliate in 1921 Mopla rebellion? They all migrated or driven out. The same thing happened in Kerala also. So many Muslim rulers came to Delhi. They conquered various places. Of course, there were resistance. Maharana Pratap was there, Ahom dynasty in Assam. Sikhs considerably held to their barracks. And Kashmiri Hindus were protected by Guru Tegh Bahadur. And it is a big history, the relation between Kashmir and Punjab. There were attempts, but still we failed because the society was rather indifferent. We thought it is the job of the ruler and the army to protect us, and we have no role. This has to change. It is slowly changing. I will not elaborate further. I will only request everybody to make at least one friend in Kashmir, one friend in Assam, one friend in Bengal, so that if something untoward happens, it will pinch your heart because your friend is affected. This is how, when a huge rumor was floated that some big massacre is going on in. I'm sorry, not feeling well. That's why I had to take a break in between. सुशील जी बूढ़ा हो गया हूँ इसलिए थोड़ा सा तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, माफ करना.
नहीं, अपना ध्यान रखिए
So
प्लीज.
I spoke to one of my friend Tony in Assam. I said, Tony, what is happening? He said, sir, give me 15 minutes. And he gave me a feedback that it's only a minor skirmish between Hindus and Muslims. It was blown out of proportions from both sides through social media. तो दुनिया भर का विजुअल्स इधर से उधर से वगैरह डाल के स्टोरी बना दिया है. कुछ नहीं है, गेट रिलैक्स्ड. Now, please connect nationalist people. Don't give much importance to politics. वो बीजेपी वाला नहीं है तो उससे मैं कैसा बात करूं. वो कम्युनिस्ट वाला है, डेफिनेटली he will be against Kashmiri Pandits. ऐसा नहीं है. You tell them the truth, they will stand with you. Politics has some reach, but not beyond that. Religion has some reach, not beyond that. But nationalism outweighs everything. Therefore, when Pulwama happened, in the night 11:30, I got a phone call from Nagarkoil, a city near Kanyakumari, almost the southern tip of India. He was frustrated. He asked me what is happening to our nation, etc., etc. Young boy. I fired him. I said, why are you troubling me at this hour of 11:30 in the night? Pulwama is so far off, and I am not the home minister. Why are you troubling me? Then he said, sorry, sir, I felt like talking to you. I am sorry. He disconnected the phone. The moment he disconnected, I started a feeling of guilt that why that small boy wanted to speak me in that night. Why he was frustrated? Because he is a nationalist. And he knew very well that I am also a nationalist in the same wavelength, so that he can share his burden or frustration with me. Instead, instead of speaking to him in a matured way, I fired him back. Oh, that was so bad. I called him back. I told him it was my mistake that I behaved in a rude manner. I apologize. He said, sir, I know you are getting so many phone calls, so you are much more frustrated than me. And that is true also. People call me in the night and why don't we drop atom bomb on Pakistan? Why don't we do a surgical strike and take complete POK with us? With all sorts of fantastic ideas. And finally, when I identify them, they are either sitting in Canada or Philadelphia in America and then advising me. Anyway, they are also nationalists. So we must have a network of nationalist people so that we will feel pain when the other man is in trouble. That will be the first step of building up a national network through social media. We don't need a Kalashnikov, and it is not advisable also. But we desperately need unity, irrespective of politics, religion, or regional feeling, language, anything. ये सब छोड़ दो. इसका सब minor influence है जिंदगी में, major नहीं है. I don't think the life of a Hindu in Gujarat is better than a life of Kerala Hindu, merely because Gujarat is run by BJP and Kerala is run by communists. थोड़ा बहुत कुछ फर्क हो सकता है, वो छोड़ दो, उसे कुछ नहीं होगा. कोई politician आपके लिए कुछ नहीं करेगा. That is what Sushil ji at the start he said that the situation in a democracy is that if you want your words to be heard by politicians, Either you should be able to defeat a candidate, or you should be able to vote a candidate and make him MLA or MP. Or the third way, the most easy way is you take the gun and kill people indiscriminately, whatever be the consequences. Now, killing one man is a murder. Killing 1,000 people, then you will be treated as a revolutionary. That is a basic principle. Never kill a single man. You want to kill at least 100 so that you will be paid as a revolutionary. This is the principle or sarcastic principle which Sushilji advocated when he started his speech. It's quite unfortunate that it is true. In a democracy, the real opinion will not come out unless you play this type of tricks. But I think even in democracy, we can, in this world of social media, we can very beautifully build a fraternity in all states. You must have one friend in every state, at least one friend, so that if that friend is in trouble, you will feel the problem, and if you are in trouble, he will feel the problem. He will inform Tamil Nadu, he will inform आसाम देखो भाई हमारा केरल में जो है वहाँ गड़बड़ हो रहा है. Let us campaign for that. So this way we will get a feeling that there are all India supporters for our cause, and slowly that will gain momentum. This is, I hope, the first step we have to do is to collect one telephone number of one friend from every state. That is, you have now, including Union Territory, you have 38. You need just 38 phone numbers in your mobile, and you see how it going to function. If it is not functioning, we will set it right. But at this moment, as an old man, this is my request to you people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tijimanda sir. Panditji, before we get to your conclusive remarks, I have a question. Actually, it's reminding everyone of a recent incident. Actually, not that recent. It happened back in 2011. There's a place called Perambalur in Tamil Nadu. There, the Muslim population is nearly 50% or more. I may be getting my statistics wrong. And in all over Tamil Nadu, the population is 8%. But in this particular place, the population is over 50%. And they had the audacity to file a case against the Hindu festival processions, citing that it is against their religious beliefs. And it took the court 9 years to resolve that issue, saying that it is not acceptable to file such a case. 9 years. And at the same time, a case to consider Kashmiri genocide was rejected by the Supreme Court, if I'm not wrong. On that area, my knowledge is a bit shady. I'm a bit in the dark, but it is my awareness that particular case was rejected or was not accepted by the Supreme Court. Such is the situation in our democracy. How do we reconcile this? With that, I request you to go ahead with your conclusion. So, Panditji.
Yeah, thank you, Manojji. What you're referring to is a case filed by us in Supreme Court, and it was not for acknowledgement of a genocide. All we said was that not even one murder, not even one massacre, not even one rape, not even one abduction, none of the heinous crimes committed against us Kashmiri Hindus that led to our exodus have been investigated, prosecuted. No conviction and no sentencing has happened. And this we said in 2017, which means 27 years after those crimes were committed. And we moved a petition in the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice at that time was Justice J.S. Kehar. He heard that petition in a division bench, 2-member bench. The other judge was Justice Chandrachud. Chief Justice asked us, have we come for publicity? We told him, listen, we are not film actors or politicians who have to contest elections. People don't even know us in our neighborhood. We have no need for any publicity. We are representing a community that has been denied justice, and that is our petition. Will you please address that issue? The second question, he said, where were you for 27 years? We said, what do we have to do when you have FIRs, when you have names of the victims, when you have names of the suspects, when all that needs to be done is to be done by the system, criminal justice system? What are we supposed to do? In any case, we have filed several petitions earlier and nothing has come of it. They whispered in each other's ears for half a minute and then threw our file back saying, it is a long time, who will investigate and what evidence we will find? There's no point entertaining this petition, and it was tossed out. I was aghast. A few days later, I was at an event where another judge of Supreme Court, who happened to be a Kashmiri Hindu, spoke with me, and he said what happened that day was tragic. If I were part of, I wouldn't have let that happen. Now, please do something about it. And several others told me that, oh, this guy J.S. Kehar was a bit wishy-washy about it. He said not just Justice J.S. Kehar, even the Attorney General of India representing the Indian state was hostile to this. And he obviously got the cue from the government. They said, no, now the judge succeeding him, the next Chief Justice, is Justice Deepak Mishra. He's a very nationalist judge. He's also rumored to deliver Ram Mandir. So when he comes, you file a review petition. He said, okay. So 4 months later, Deepak Mishra took over. We have a 6 months time to file a review petition. We filed the review petition in time. And this time, Justice Deepak Mishra sat with Justice Chandrachud, and the result was the same. What I'm telling you is, after Deepak Mishra tossed our file out again in review petition, 4 days later, they admitted a petition on Mahatma Gandhi murder case, where the petitioner said there were 4 bullets fired. Mahatma Gandhi had only 2, which means some other pistol fired other bullets. Let us investigate who the real murderer was and whether the person hanged was the right murderer or somebody else fired from somewhere else. And this petition was admitted more than 72 years after the murder took place, or almost 70 years after the murder took place. This is the kind of judiciary we have, which opens up at 2 a.m. in the morning for Yaqub Memon, who's a convicted jihadi, a terrorist. But for such as what happened in Kashmir, there is absolute apathy, and they take their cues from what the government of the day wants. The same Deepak Mishra, in another event where I was also supposed to speak, spoke eloquently about compassion in justice. I thought this was my turn to publicly remind him of an utter lack of compassion when he dealt with our petition. But as normally happens, he delivered his speech, picked up his bag, and left. I still use that opportunity to tell the people that he's the same judge who tossed my petition out on frivolous grounds. What do we do? This was the last door of justice we could knock at. People also tell us, why don't you move a class action suit in International Court of Justice at UN Human Rights Commission? I said, now that is the only resort left with us, which is to drag our own country into embarrassment over global forums. This is what you would like us to do, and be targeted by rest of the country for embarrassing your own nation, your own government. So we are today caught between jihad and an indifferent, apathetic state which denies the jihad, between genocide and denial of genocide. And as a community per se, and as part of a larger Hindu family, which is looking at the inevitable, staring at it, we need to seriously put our heads together and figure a way out. I don't think the system we are within will work for us. We need to have preparedness outside the system. System is broken. The politics is broken. I don't think this nation can deliver more than what it has already done in 2014 and 2019, a resounding mandate to correct things. And we have been patiently waiting. In any civilized society, a citizen willingly surrenders his rights to arms and violence when it gives his life in the hands of the state for protection. If we are not civilized citizens in a civilized state who are law abiding and renounce our right to violence in favor of the state's right to violence, then it's the Wild West and we can do whatever you deem fit. But if we are, then we need to find ways and means. We need to, seriously. It's a feeling of walking into a swamp and getting swallowed by it, slowly and gradually, but surely. It may be a very depressing conclusion to end our conversation on, but you cannot lie in the face of a writing on the wall. That is what I see.
No such negative feelings, Sushilji. Are you residing in Delhi?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you can do one thing. Please go and meet Dr. Subramanian Swami, AB 14 Pandara Road. He is at present in Sri Lanka. He is supposed to return within 3-4 days. After that, he'll be there for at least 1 week. Just barge into his house. Getting an appointment will be difficult because he may not pick up phone of unknown people. You can just go to his home so that you will get an appointment. He will say that at least you come in the afternoon or tomorrow morning, and consult with him. And if it is to be taken internationally, let us do that. Of course, that could be a minor embarrassment for government of India. But the government of India is such a huge establishment. This type of minor embarrassments will not be a big thing for them. Because we have to find a solution for this. And retribution is required. When the Indian administration is not taking any action and Indian judiciary is throwing its towel, then you have to approach international appropriate forum. But probably, in my knowledge, Dr. Swami will be the right man to give you advice as well as to connect you somewhere in USA. or Hague, wherever case is to be filed. So don't think that all is lost. There are broader shoulders to support you, and जो हो गया, but अब
हाँ
जो करने के लिए
जी
आगे बढ़ने के लिए आपके साथ लोग हैं, आप अकेले नहीं हैं, हम हैं आपके साथ,
जी
हम भी
मोहन
हैं।
जी. No,
Thank
I agree with
you.
you, and I'm grateful that you said these things. We are not going to relent in our fight. I mean, that is for sure. Uh, Even as individuals, as organizations, small organizations, we are chipping away, and we will continue to chip away, and we're not going to relent at all, at all. I'll tell you one small anecdote, and we'll end there. And why I'm saying this: I was in London a few months back, and I met an activist from Sindh, Pakistan. There, his name is Lakhu Luhana. He's secretary of the World Sindhi Congress. He and I were in touch earlier, and when we personally met, we spent a couple of hours talking. And before leaving, I asked him, I said, Lakhuji, I'm living under Indian state, which is a democracy, and it genuinely gives me space to say my thing and to fight. Even if it is a losing battle, I have the satisfaction of putting together a fight that I can fight. But you under Pakistani state cannot even be in Pakistan. You are sitting in UK trying to wage a battle against a state which is far from being democratic or tolerant. It's a military state. And there people lose their lives no matter who they are for dissent. So do you see any hope in the outcome of what you are going to do and what you are doing for years? You know what his response was? I'll never forget this. And I think whoever is hearing today must remember it. He said, Sushil ji, Sindh is my mother. My mother is in trouble. As a son, it is my privilege to fight for her. And I will fight irrespective of the outcome. So when he can fight against such odds, we are in far better position. Far, far better position. We are not going to give up. Far from it. But what worries me is that the rest of the society, the country, is not learning from our experience and getting together to safeguard what is still worthy of saving. This is a gnawing anxiousness which really saps the energy. If if Hindus, I don't know, I'm sure you must have seen the footage of Palghar. I'm sure you must have seen the footage emerging from post-election Bengal. I'm sure you've seen the footage from clusters in Bihar and UP. In independent India, if hapless Hindus have to go through this under this regime, under Yogi's regime, under Modi's regime, they can't reach everywhere. But sometimes the apathy, the indifference, lack of action, or even lack of response in the wider community, one wonders, is this going to be the fate of all of us? I see us turning the corner after 1,000 years. I see, green shoots of hope. We need a lot more of it, a lot faster. We have very little time. And we need to get ready. It's a priority for all of us. It is that anxiousness I'm trying to share with you. I'm aware of what's happening in Kerala, in Malabar, from Kasargod downwards, from Manjeri downwards, right up to Kunnur and beyond. I know what's happening around Mangalore. I know what's happening in Coorg. I know what has happened in Bhatkal, the coastal town in Karnataka. I'm in touch with people across India in these clusters. There is a place in Tamil Nadu called Ambur in Ramanathapuram. You see what's happening there. Muslim population is less than 6% in Tamil Nadu. But Kamala Hassan could not release his Vishwarupan in Tamil Nadu. He could not. So it's not about numbers alone. What is 6% of population? Nothing. But the stranglehold they have on the psyche, the disproportionate fear quotient, the terror quotient they wield over a population we have left unprepared and unaware is daunting. I mean, a gentleman from Assam just shared what's happening there. I've been there. I see it. I hear about it. I read about it. It's sometimes, it can get overwhelming. If you see what women are going through, I don't know whether you've read Lajja by Taslima Nasreen about what happened in Bangladesh, or if you've read the reports about what happened on Dashmi in Durga Pandals in Bangladesh, 4 people died. Or what's happening to Hindus in Pakistan, what's happened to them in Afghanistan. The genocide is complete. But I can, for a moment, shut my eyes to that and wonder what's happening to us here in India under this regime with this mandate. It's nothing short of paralysis. Our parliament passed the bill called CAA on 12th of December 2019. Okay, 12th of December 2019. It is going to be 2 years in another 2 months. Even the rules have not been framed. Not one citizenship has been granted. That is the level of paralysis. We are dragging our feet on things that we go ahead and do resolutely. We need to make ourselves aware of what's happening and light some fires under very comfortable seats and get them to start moving and working. There's enormous work to be done. So many fronts to be fought on. I know Dr. Subramaniam Swami and he knows me. I've met him several times. Yes, he is busy. And he has his own priorities in life, though he has been very consistent in our support for us. But today, even he feels extremely helpless. Otherwise, he would have certainly reached out and done something about it. But he's consistently maintained a very, very strong support for us publicly. And we are grateful to him. Anyway, I think we've dragged on for almost 4 hours now. People have to sleep. Thank you very much for your patience. And I don't mean to sound depressing. There's no reason to be depressed, I guess. We have to get our act together and prevail. And that we shall.
Thank you, Pandit Ji.
Before
Mohandas sir?
before we close, I owe a big thanks to Kashmiri people. Generally, I am a man. I must eat rice at least once in a day. It could be any time, but at least once I need 2 or 3 teaspoonful of rice. Otherwise, I feel dizzy. I went to Kashmir and near Lal Chowk. It was all normal. And then my host was a Muslim, a pure nationalist, a spirited Muslim. He arranged food for us. We were 3, 4 people. That was the only day in my life I didn't take rice because his puri and some sort of absolutely tasty masala that I did not feel like eating rice at all. So the Kashmiri recipe is one of the great thing India has ever produced. I like Kashmir very much. The nature has painted Kashmir in the maximum beautiful way. The plants, the trees, they have some inherent discipline. यहाँ केरला में जो है ना, you have to put a gardener to cut the tree into shape. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कश्मीर में, ये सब नेचुरली हो जाता है. सो इतना सुंदर देश है, इतना अच्छा वातावरण है. We just cannot afford to lose that. We have to recapture it. There was a Malayalam film with a Urdu song. वो खुदाया लौटा दे कश्मीर हमारा, खुदा से मन्नत है मेरी, लौटा दे जन्नत वो मेरी, वो चमन वो अमन का सितारा, वो खुदाया लौटा दे कश्मीर दोबारा. We will
Wow.
regain Kashmir again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohanji.
Thank you, TG Mohandas sir. Thank you, Sushil Ji. That brings us to our conclusion. First of all, thank you so much, Sushil Pandit Ji. I understand this was a highly emotional session for you, but as you said, this is a war where we cannot give up at any point. And let me
Yeah.
express my sincere gratitude as an Indian and a Hindu for not giving up, first of all.
Yeah. Yep.
And let me also make a personal promise today to you and all the Kashmiri Hindus that I will join the fight in whichever way possible, per my humble capacity. At least, as TG Mohandas sir said, I will at least try to gain as many Kashmiri Hindu friends as possible from this day on. That will be a start, I believe. And to be aware of the situation and to start a campaign and whatever is within my capacity, I promise that I will be doing that from now on. I have been doing that, but I know that that wasn't enough. And on that note, Pandit Ji, with yours and TG Mohandas sir's permission, let me move towards the conclusion of this session.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. This, to the audience, all I have to say is this: the issue of jihad is a festering problem, not just in Kashmir, but all over the world. We cannot turn a blind eye towards the issue just because of the fact that addressing this problem as it might hurt the religious sentiments that is perched on some imaginary loft. The genocide of Kashmiri Hindus happened, and many of the criminals, let me call them Islamic terrorists, who perpetuated those heinous crimes are still roaming free, claiming themselves to be victims, thanks to people like Barkhadat. And so I'm sorry to bring up names, but I have to. Irony is that rest of India, which includes me, a majority of the country is blissfully ignorant to this horrendous crime. How long and far this will go on? Well, in my personal opinion, that decision starts with each one of us. Basic necessities and day-to-day life affairs are all essentials. I agree with that. But those things should not be pursued at the cost of our own cultural and national identity. So unless we rise up and get ourselves to a position of strength, what happened in Kashmir will happen in Kerala. It has already started in Assam and West Bengal. So unless we unite and fight this battle of survival, it won't be long before we Hindus will also become an extinct culture or society like many other ancient cultures which were destroyed by the jihadi terrorists throughout the history. At least what we can do, what each one of us can do, is that gather the courage to speak the truth about what happened to the Hindus of Malabar back in 1921, what happened to the Kashmiri Hindus, what is happening to the Hindus of West Bengal and Assam, and what will happen to the Hindus of Kerala. Have the courage to call out Yasin Maliks and Gilanis of the world by their real identities, that of jihadi terrorists, not as spokespersons of Kashmir, as many media and political parties might project them. It is my humble prayer to all of you. Ignore the pseudo-secular ecosystem that will try to silence you. Speak the truth and fight the war for existence. When you do that, administrations will be forced to follow you and acknowledge your existence and acknowledge your demands. That is my humble opinion. With that, let's conclude tonight's event. Sushil Panditji, thank you once again, and TG Mohandas sir, thank you so much, and Shubhratri to all.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. With that note, audience, thank you so much for joining us in this session. I am ending this session. Before we do, I have an announcement to make. Continuing the fight against jihad, I'm announcing this in English. We have a session about love jihad and narco jihad, where the founder and director of Arsha Vidya Samajam, Acharya Manojji, will be speaking tomorrow, and actually Sunday, Indian Standard Time, 8 p.m. on Vande Mataram Clubhouse. And with that note, kindly do subscribe to Pathrika if you haven't already. Please do. Thank you. Thank you.